The movie, based on real events, begins with an adventurer named Yossi. After 3 years of service in the Israeli army, he did not follow his father's plans for college, but chose a different path, the path of wanderlust. In 1981, his road leads him to the heart of South America. The truck rushes along a narrow mountain road in Bolivia, with dizzying views around every corner. On the banks of a rushing river, he and a group of tourists board a boat. At the last moment, a latecomer appears on the dock, the teacher Marcus. He too is eager for adventure and travel, just like Yossi. They immediately find a common language and share their stories in the Lagar tent. Soon Kevin, an experienced photographer and an old friend of Marcus, joins their company. The three of them travel to La Paz, a vibrant, diverse and unpredictable city where something amazing lurks around every corner. Yossi enjoys the bustling streets, the colorful culture, and the flavors and aromas of Bolivia. Carl notices him from afar, immediately realizes he is a tourist, and approaches him with a proposition. Speaking almost in a whisper, Carl reveals to him an enticing prospect, a journey beyond the borders of the maps, deep into the wild jungle, where no civilized man has ever set foot. There, in the heart of the Amazon, lives an ancient tribe, untouched by the influence of the outside world. This is a chance to become a discoverer, to see what is hidden from human eyes. His proposal is immediately liked, and he begins to convince his new friends. Kevin agrees to the adventurous journey, but Marcus isn't so sure. He claims that they do not know who Carl is, so, in his opinion, they should not believe him. But after much persuasion, he agrees. The next day Carl spreads out a map in front of them and shows them the route. They prepare thoroughly, they buy supplies. Soon there is the roar of an airplane engine, and their way lies deep into the unknown. November 4, 1981 begins their fateful journey into the heart of the jungle, where some are waiting for difficulties, others, revelations, and others will never return. Carl walked ahead like a fanatical prophet, broadcasting his philosophy. He spoke of the purity of nature, of its untouched harmony, of how man, God's foolish mistake, was destroying everything around him for the convenience of civilization. There was something eerie, haunting in his words, but no one paid any attention to it. At night they stopped, made a fire. A few hours later, a downpour began, turning the trail into liquid mud. When the travelers reached the first village on the bank of the river, they were greeted with joy. To the locals, the strangers seemed like aliens, especially when they decided to wash in the river. The evening passed in ritual dances, strange food. In the morning, Marcus, who had stocked up on medical supplies for the journey, became the village's doctor, with patients lining up to see him. After saying goodbye to the hospitable villagers, they set off on their journey. Carl continued his speech about how destructive humans are to nature. In the evening he shoots a monkey, but does not kill it immediately. The animal squeals in pain until Carl, stone-faced, smashes its head with the butt of his gun. In the jungle, ammunition is more valuable than life, he explains, lifting the bloody body by its tail. When the monkey turns into lunch, Marcus refuses to eat. The next day, Marcus begins to fall behind the group as he has become severely weakened. His feet are festering from the constant moisture and his strength is deserting him. Carl offers to drop everything and go back, but Kevin decides otherwise. They will build a raft and float down the river. Soon the improvised raft is gliding through the water, carried by the swift current. Everything is going smoothly. Until the rapids appear. Marcus loses his balance and nearly falls overboard. Their argument turns tense and they decide to dock. Carl suggests going back to town and Marcus, exhausted and weary, agrees. Yossi and Kevin don't want to cut the trip short halfway through and decide to split up. They share supplies, discuss the route, and Carl draws on a map the best place to go ashore to reach the Indian settlement. They say goodbye, sure that they will definitely meet again, not realizing that fate has other plans. Yossi and Kevin don't make it to shore in time. The raft crashes on a rock in the middle of the river. Kevin throws himself into the water, clinging to the shore rocks. Yossi tries to throw him a machete, but his wet fingers are treacherously unclenched. He loses his balance and falls into the rushing river. The impact with the water is cold, painful. He frantically clings to the air, but the current is stronger. When he finally makes it to shore, his hands are shaking. It's starting to rain. Yossi climbs higher and finds shelter among the roots of a giant tree. He does not know where Kevin is or if he is alive. The next morning, he finds his backpack on the river and goes in search of his partner. But no matter how many times he calls out, there is no answer. At night, he leaves a note on a rock, leaves his supplies behind, and sets off on his journey. Soon he realizes he is trapped, the forest seems endless, and his food supplies are running low. One day, in a futile attempt to get fruit, he plucks a snake from a branch. In a hungry trance, he smashes its head with a stone. In the morning, he discovers a parasite on his forehead. He tries to remove it with forceps, but pain pierces his consciousness. He pulls, but the creature won't come out. In agony, Yossi, not caring about his filthy hands, tears open the wound and squeezes out the worm, followed by a plume of rotting blood. Staggering and stumbling, he spots a bird's nest. His hands shake as he breaks the eggs and drinks them raw. Gaining strength, he continues on his way, and after a few hours he finds boot prints. He starts calling out for Kevin, thinking it's him. Just then his gaze falls to the ground. A broken eggshell. Yossi realizes that the footprints are his, and he's back in the same place he was recently. Haunted by impotent rage, he goes into a frenzy. At the same time, at the other end of the jungle, locals find an exhausted Kevin. Barely regaining consciousness, the traveler tries to organize a search for his friend. Officials do not want to spend money on the search. Kevin turns to a fisherman who knows the river better than anyone else. Yossi, meanwhile, meets an Aboriginal woman who doesn't understand a word he says. He takes her with him and tries to take care of her as much as his strength allows. At night he cuddles up to her for warmth and suddenly realizes that the woman has disappeared. Only then does it become clear, it was just a hallucination, a figment of his tormented mind. The next day, having lost touch with reality, Yossi falls into the mire. The viscous slurry sucks him in and he loses his backpack. At the last moment, he grabs a low-hanging branch and climbs out. Covered in mud, he struggles to move, having no strength at all. Noticing a tree swarming with fire ants, Yossi tears off his clothes and shakes off the insects. The stinging pain of the bite seems to awaken him, giving him the last of his strength. He walks out to the riverbank and makes a sign from a tree, hoping someone will notice him. Then he passes out from helplessness. In the morning, as if by a sign of fate, Kevin arrives at the same spot in a boat. He scrutinizes the shores, but sees nothing suspicious. As the boat is about to round the corner, with one last glance he sees a thin, haggard Yossi crawling out of the mud onto the shore. Kevin turns the boat around and carries his friend back to the settlement. Soon the locals gather around the rescued tourist, looking at him like a miracle. Kevin goes to get a medic. The credits appear on the screen with the fate of the heroes. Kevin continues traveling and photographing exotic places. Yossi stays by the same river, opening a small hotel. Carl and Marcus disappeared without a trace, their traces lost in the jungle. Later it turns out that Carl, wanted by the police, repeatedly took tourists allegedly to a non-existent Indian tribe. The movie is dedicated to the memory of the missing Marcus. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and put a like on the channel. See you soon.